well, the moment you all been waiting for, the number one halftime show is, drum roll, Michael Jackson. Now, this was the this was the first Super Bowl halftime show where a mainstream popular musical superstar was the headliner and the main focus. Now, there had been a couple of others in the past, but they were more secondary. But Michael Jackson was an international superstar, and he was just coming off of a hit. Well, he was just coming off of another multi-platinum selling album in Dangerous. Plus, the NFL definitely knew they had to do something after they saw the numbers for the Living Color live halftime Super Bowl show a year earlier, which pulled in between 20 to 22 to 30 million viewers. So they knew, so the NFL knew that their show, that the Living Color show pulled away from the halftime show as well as the Super Bowl, because everyone was watching Living Color instead of the Super Bowl. So what better way to do it than to get one of the most, get the most popular artists in the world, and Michael Jackson. And they definitely hit a home run with that halftime show, as that halftime show ended up pulling in over 120 million viewers. And that was the highest viewed halftime show until Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show last year ended up outdoing that show. But of course, you know, Michael Jackson always knew how to put on a show, and he definitely performed a few of his biggest hits, such as Jam, Billie Jean, Black or White. And also, Michael Jackson always conveyed messages in his music, as he ended it with "We Are the World," which he performed with a children's choir. He also, back in the day, he also co-wrote that song with Lionel Richie and collaborated with the hottest artists of that time, such as Bruce Springsteen, Tina Turner, Willie Nelson, Diana Ross, Harry Belafonte, and many other superstar artists. And also, he ended it with "Heal the World." And after that, the Super Bowl halftime show has not changed ever since. And now we are getting a lot of show-stopping halftime shows featuring superstar, world-renowned musical artists to be the headliner. And we also may have a few special guests here and there during the halftime show. But we all know Michael Jackson. Now everyone calls Michael Jackson the king of pop, but Michael was the king of all music. Was the king of music because his music wasn't limited to a certain genre. You could argue that it's pop, that it's R&B. There's also elements of hip hop, because a lot of people don't know Michael Jackson was definitely a big fan of hip hop. I mean, come on. He collaborated with Heavy D on Jam. He also collaborated with Biggie Smalls on This Time Around, which was on the History album. So Michael was a fan of hip hop. Also, he infused classical music, gospel music, rock music. So that's why we call Michael the king of music, because his music is universal and it crosses over with fans of whatever genre you may be. And it was definitely on full display in this Super Bowl halftime show. And also, definitely the showmanship of Michael Jackson. He was one of the most master showmen in the business, as he definitely was influenced by such performers as Fred Astaire, as well as James Brown, and many others, including Little Richard. But Michael, like Prince, definitely gave you a show that you'll always remember, that's iconic, legendary. It's a show that you'll be talking about for years to come. And we're still talking about this Super Bowl halftime show over 30 years later when we have conversations about Super Bowl halftime shows. And in everybody's rank, on almost everybody's ranking, his Super Bowl halftime show is at least in the top 5, even if it's not number 1. And also, of course, we definitely can't forget the black and gold leather suit that Michael rocked when he came to the stage, which later inspired Beyonce to wear the same thing in her Super Bowl halftime show during Super Bowl 50. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I had a tough time between choosing this and Prince for number 1 and number 2. I kept on going back and forth with it multiple times, comparing the two, the pros and cons. But this one had to be number 1 because Michael definitely was a master showman. He was a perfectionist, just like Prince was. Also, Michael gave everything 110% in his performances, and this was no different in this Super Bowl halftime show. Everything was on point, from the set list to the costume to the choreography, and even to his introduction, where he just exploded literally onto the stage and just started performing. Also, he was definitely the jump start for this Super Bowl halftime. Well, he was definitely, he was definitely the jump off for this era of the Super Bowl halftime show. And a lot of people and a lot of artists, whether they want to admit it or not, they have been trying to at least come close to duplicating the impact Michael Jackson had on the Super Bowl halftime show. But a lot of them have not come close to it, and that's no disrespect to them, because a lot of the artists that have performed in the Super Bowl halftime show since Michael are great artists. A lot of them are all-time great. Some of these artists are all-time great artists, iconic, legendary. But Michael and Prince were in that rare air where they set the standard, and also they set very high bars in their shows as well as in their music. Excuse me. And, that may take a lot of artists a lifetime to even get close to those bars that they set, because they created paths to, They found paths where there were no paths and created them, and left huge trails for a lot of artists to follow. And also, Michael brought everybody together for this Super Bowl halftime performance. Matter of fact, every time get a little tongue tied again. Anytime his concerts or videos or performances would premiere, they were events. And this was the biggest event of all, doing the halftime show for the Super Bowl, the biggest game on television. There's nothing else on that week that's going to compete against it. And this was definitely Michael Jackson. He was definitely one of the masters on putting on a major event for the whole world to see. And he definitely accomplished that right here in this Super Bowl halftime show. And this is one of the most iconic, legendary halftime Super Bowl shows ever, that definitely created the blueprint. That created the blueprint for how artists should do their halftime shows going forward.